My husband slapped me in front of 180 guests before the wedding cake was even cut. For a second, nobody moved. The band stopped in the middle of a slow jazz song. A fork hit a plate somewhere behind me. My bouquet slipped lower in my shaking hands, white roses brushing against the beaded waist of my dress. My cheek burned so sharply that I could feel my own pulse under his handprint. And my brand new husband, Ethan Whitaker, stood inches from me with his jaw locked, his tuxedo perfect, his eyes colder than I had ever seen them. "Apologize to my mother," he said. "Right now." Behind him, Vivian Whitaker sat at the center table like a queen who had just ordered an execution. Her pearls rested against her throat. Her silver hair was twisted into a perfect knot. She did not look shocked. She did not look upset. She looked satisfied. That was the part that made the room tilt. I had spent 14 months planning that wedding, not because I wanted a fairy tale, but because Ethan's family demanded a certain kind of public show. The Whitakers were old Charleston money, not billionaire famous, but close enough that people behaved like they were. They owned half a dozen luxury rental properties, had their names on hospital plaques, and knew exactly which judges' wife sat on which nonprofit board. My family was different. My father ran a small plumbing company in North Carolina until his knees gave out. My mother taught third grade for 29 years. I was a graphic designer who built wedding websites, invitation suites, and small brand identities for people who couldn't afford big agencies. I was proud of that. Vivian treated it like a hobby I should outgrow. From the day Ethan brought me home, she smiled at me like I was a stain she planned to bleach out. "She's pretty," she once told Ethan while I stood right there. "But pretty girls from nowhere sometimes mistake attention for belonging." Ethan laughed nervously then. He kissed my forehead and whispered, "She just takes time to warm up." She never warmed up. She corrected my clothes. My voice. My lipstick. The way I held a wine glass. The way I said, "Yes, ma'am." As if I was either too southern or not southern enough, depending on her mood. She told me the rehearsal dinner menu was too personal when I asked if we could include my latta grandmother's peach cobbler. She changed the flowers behind my back from wild garden roses to white orchids because, according to her, roses looked needy. And every time I pushed back, Ethan turned into a diplomat for the wrong country. "She's intense," he would say. "But she means well." That night, standing in front of the entire ballroom at Magnolia Hall, I finally understood that Vivian meant exactly what she did. The slap came 10 minutes after she ordered me out of my own seat. I had just sat down for the first time in hours. My feet were swollen. My ribs hurt from the corset. The photographer had dragged us through the oak garden, the stone steps, the veranda, the fountain, the champagne tower, the family portraits, the couple portraits, and another round of family portraits because Vivian insisted her left side looked more public-facing. I remember lowering myself into the chair at the sweetheart table and thinking, just breathe until dinner. Then Vivian appeared beside me. "Claire," she said, not loudly, but with the kind of voice that made nearby people stop chewing. "You need to get up." I blinked, thinking I misheard her. "Excuse me? That chair belongs to the mother of the groom." I actually laughed a little. Not because it was funny, but because my brain rejected the sentence. "This is our table," I said carefully. "Ethan and I are sitting here." Vivian's smile thinned. "You married into my family today. It would be wise to learn where you sit inside it." The conversation around us faded. I saw my cousin Lily freeze with her water glass halfway to her mouth. My brother Marcus, who had never liked Ethan, leaned forward from the family table. I kept my voice low. "Vivian, I'm not moving from the bride's chair at my own wedding." Her eyes sharpened. "The bride's chair," she repeated, as if the phrase disgusted her. "You girls really do believe the dress makes you royalty." I felt heat rise under the makeup on my face. "My place in this family is not something you prove by taking my seat." Her expression changed instantly. It was almost fascinating. She leaned back, pressed two fingers to her collarbone, and looked toward Ethan with wounded disbelief. "Ethan," she called. "Your wife just humiliated me." He came over before I could explain. His face already looked embarrassed, and somehow that embarrassed him enough to be angry at me. "What happened?" he asked his mother. "Not us." His mother. Vivian's voice trembled beautifully. "I asked to sit for just a moment. My back is killing me, and I have done everything for this wedding. She told me I had no place here." "That is not what I said," I said. Ethan turned to me. "Claire." Just my name, but it sounded like a warning. "She told me to get out of my chair," I said. "At our wedding." Vivian made a soft, broken sound. "Oh, don't twist it." Ethan's eyes darted around the room. Guests were watching. Donors, neighbors, family friends, country club people, old college friends, his boss from Whitaker Development, and 180 people waiting to see which woman Ethan would protect. Had chosen 3 seconds. "Apologize," he said. I stared at him. For what? For disrespecting my mother. Something inside me cracked then, but it did not break. Not yet. I'm not apologizing because she tried to turn my wedding into a loyalty test. His face changed. You always do this. I almost laughed again. Always. On our wedding day, after 14 months of swallowing insult after insult, I was suddenly the woman who always did this. Ethan, I whispered, please don't make this uglier. Vivian stood behind him, eyes bright. If she can't show basic respect today, she said, how will she behave tomorrow? When the papers are signed? When the money is involved? When real family decisions have to be made? I heard papers and money, but in the chaos of humiliation, I didn't understand yet. Ethan did. I saw it flicker across his face. Fear. Then rage. You're embarrassing me, he said. No, I said. You're embarrassing yourself. The slap happened so fast I didn't see his hand move. I only heard it. The sound cracked through Magnolia Hall like a champagne glass breaking against marble. My head turned with the force of it. My veil tugged at my scalp. A tiny bead from my earring hit the floor. For the first time that day, Vivian smiled without hiding it. Ethan breathed hard. Apologize to my mother, he said again. My mother was crying. My father had both hands on the table as if he needed it to hold himself down. Marcus jumped up, but two of Ethan's cousins stepped in front of him. The wedding planner stood by the doors with her headset pressed to her ear, frozen. The officiant, who had legally married us less than 4 hours earlier, looked at his shoes. Nobody crossed the room. Nobody except Lily. My cousin shoved her chair back and started toward me, but I lifted my hand just enough to stop her. I did not want another woman to be dragged into the center of that room because Ethan had decided my dignity was negotiable. Vivian stepped closer. Kneel, she said. A few people gasped. She smiled at them like they had misunderstood something elegant. A public insult requires a public apology. I looked at Ethan. This was the man who had cried when he proposed under a freezing December sky. The man who used to send me voice notes when I worked late. The man who said my independence was one of the reasons he loved me. But his face was not the face of a man who had lost control. It was the face of a man waiting to see if control had worked. That realization was colder than the slap. This was not a mistake. It was not wedding stress. It was not champagne, family pressure, or an argument gone too far. This was a ceremony inside the ceremony. They had brought me into a beautiful room, surrounded me with witnesses, and decided to measure exactly how much of myself I would surrender in exchange for keeping my place. I reached up and pulled the veil out of my hair. Several pins fell to the floor. Ethan blinked. Claire, he said, softer now, because he sensed something slipping. I laid the veil on the table beside the untouched cake. 3 tiers of white fondant, gold leaf, and sugar orchids Vivian chose. No, I said. His lips parted. What? No, Vivian's face hardened. I looked at her, then at him. I will not kneel. I will not apologize for sitting in the bride's chair at my own wedding. And I will not start a marriage by proving I can survive being humiliated. Ethan's voice dropped. Don't be dramatic. You hit me. You pushed me. The room seemed to inhale. That was the sentence that saved me. Not because it hurt less. It hurt more. But it cleaned the fog out of my head. I had seen women on TV, in podcasts, in articles, in quiet conversations after too much wine, explain how the person who hurt them somehow made them responsible for the injury. I had always believed I would recognize it immediately. But love makes dangerous things look familiar. Standing there with my cheek burning, I recognized it. I set my bouquet on the table. I'm leaving. Vivian laughed once. In that dress? I looked down at myself. Satin lace, a train long enough to make walking feel like dragging a river. Yes, I said. Into his dress. Ethan grabbed my wrist as I passed him. Walk out that door, he said, and this marriage is over before it starts. I looked at his hand on me. Then let go of your ex-wife. He did not let go until Marcus shouted his name across the room in a voice I had never heard from my brother before. The grip loosened. I walked, every step felt impossible. My dress caught on chair legs. Guests leaned away, then leaned in to whisper. Phones disappeared under tables and came back up at chest level. I saw pity, fear, excitement, judgment. Some people looked offended that my pain had interrupted their dinner. Lily caught up with me near the ballroom doors, carrying my small beaded purse and car keys. Claire, she whispered, voice shaking. You can't drive. I can. You're shaking. I know. Outside, Charleston air hit my face, humid and sweet with magnolia and rain. The night was too beautiful for what had happened inside. Spanish moss shifted in the oak trees. Ballet boys pretended not to stare. Somewhere inside, the band began playing again, soft and uncertain, as if music could sew the room back together. It could not. Lily rode with me to a small hotel near King Street. I did not go to the townhouse Ethan and I had leased. I did not go to Miprint's Airbnb because I could not bear their faces yet. I checked in under my own last name, Bennett, with mascara dried in lines on my face and a wedding dress gathered in both fists. The young woman at the front desk looked at me once and said, "Nothing except, would you like extra towels?" I almost cried at her kindness. In the room, Lily helped unbutton the dress. There were 37 buttons down the back. By button 12, she was sobbing. By button 20, I was. When the dress finally fell around my feet, I stepped out of it like I was stepping out of a burning house. Lily stayed until almost 2:00 in the morning. She made me drink water. She took pictures of my cheek from several angles. She saved the videos her husband had taken from table 9. She put my phone on silent because Ethan had already called 26 times. After she left, I sat on the bathroom floor in a hotel robe, staring at my face in the mirror. The mark was darker now, not just red but swollen at the edge, a shape I could not stop looking at. I thought I would cry because my wedding was ruined. Instead, I cried because part of me still wanted Ethan to knock on the door and become the man I had imagined. At 2:17 a.m., my phone lit up. Not Ethan. Not Vivian. An email from Palmetto Atlantic Bank. Subject: Congratulations on your business line approval. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. Then I saw my full legal name in the preview. Dear Mrs. Claire Bennett Whitaker, my stomach dropped before my brain understood why. I opened the email. Congratulations. Your commercial line of credit in the amount of $3.2 million has been approved. Funds may be released upon final confirmation from your authorized account contact. I read it 3 times. Then I opened the attached PDF. There was my full name. My social security number. My old home address. My new married name. A business entity I had never heard of, Whitaker Bennett Event Holdings LLC. And on page 7, under authorized secondary contact, was Vivian Whitaker. My hands went cold. At the bottom of the document, there was a signature that looked almost exactly like mine. Almost. But I had never applied for that loan. And I had never given Vivian permission to touch my name. By morning, Ethan had called 34 times. I listened to none of the voicemails at first. I sat on the hotel bed with the curtains open, watching early sunlight hit the buildings across the street, and read the bank email until the words blurred. A person can go numb in layers. The slap had numbed my face. The email numbed something deeper. It reached into the private part of me that believed, even after everything, that the violence was emotional and physical, but not calculated. The loan proved calculation. At 7:42 a.m., Vivian texted. Claire, sweetheart, last night got out of hand. Families have difficult moments. Come home and we will handle everything quietly. I stared at the word sweetheart until I wanted to throw the phone across the room. Then another text came. You do not want to make legal trouble one day into marriage. Then another. Remember, your name is attached now too. That was the first threat. I screenshotted everything. By 9 o'clock, Lily was back with coffee, sweatpants, a hoodie, and the expression of a woman preparing for war. You need a lawyer, she said. I need a shower first. You need both. She was right. By noon, I sat in a downtown office across from Marin Doyle, a family law attorney with silver-framed glasses and the calmest voice I had ever heard. Her office had no wedding photos, no inspirational wall quotes, no soft music. Just files, legal books, and a large window facing the courthouse. I told her everything. The chair. The slap. Vivian's demand that I kneel. Ethan blaming. The email. Lily played the video from table 9. It showed the slap clearly, though the angle was partly blocked by a centerpiece. Marin watched without changing expression, but when Vivian mouthed something behind Ethan, Marin paused the video. Do you have audio from another angle? Maybe, Lily said. A lot of people were filming. Marin turned to me. Claire, listen carefully. This is not just a bad marriage. This may be identity theft, fraud, coercive control, and domestic violence. The timing matters, the public humiliation matters. The loan matters more. My throat tightened. I don't even know how they got my information. Marriage paperwork, she said. Tax documents, rental applications. Anything you filled out while planning your life with him. I remembered the forms Ethan had asked me to sign 3 weeks before the wedding. Insurance, lease documents. Vendor authorizations. A new joint checking account we never used. I remembered him taking pictures of my driver's license and social security card for the bank. I wanted to be sick. Marin slid a legal pad toward herself. I'm going to refer you to a forensic investigator I trust. His name is Grant Holloway. Former Financial Crimes Unit. You will not speak to Ethan or Vivian on the phone unless we decide to record under the law. You will preserve every message. You will not go to the townhouse alone. You will not sign anything. You will not let shame make you quiet. That last sentence landed harder than I expected. Shame had been sitting on my chest all morning. Shame that I had married him. Shame that people had seen me slapped. Shame that I had walked past 180 guests in a dress my parents helped pay for. Shame that some part of me still remembered him kissing my hand in the car after our first date. Marin seemed to read my face. He hit you, she said. He did that. Not you. I nodded, but I did not believe it fully yet. That took longer. For the next 8 days, my life became evidence. Screenshots. Voicemails. Emails. Bank documents. Vendor contracts. Wedding footage. Texts from Vivian that shifted like weather, soft, then cruel, then terrified, then soft again. Ethan's messages were worse because they sounded like love with poison stirred into it. Baby, please. I lost control. Mom was humiliated. You know how she gets. You made me look like a monster. We can still fix this if you stop involving outsiders. Claire, don't ruin my life over 5 bad seconds. Then, when I did not answer, do you understand what my family can do if you go public? Marin asked me to let him leave voicemails. Grant Holloway arrived at Marin's office on day 3 wearing a faded navy blazer and carrying a laptop that looked older than some off-me cousins. He had the tired eyes of a man who had spent too much of his life watching decent people get buried under paperwork they never signed. He listened to the story once. He did not interrupt. When I finished, he tapped the bank document with one finger. Families like the Whitakers don't improvise at 2 o'clock in the morning, he said. This was built before the wedding. I hated him for saying it. Then I hated him more because I knew he was right. Grant found the first crack in less than 48 hours. Whitaker Bennett Event Holdings LLC had been registered 16 days before the wedding. My name appeared as managing member. Ethan's appeared as operations director. Vivian's did not appear anywhere public, which Grant said was the point. She's too smart to stand in front, he said. She'll be behind the receiving account. By day 5, he had uncovered 2 business checking accounts tied to the LLC, a merchant account application, and a pending wire request for $850,000 to a consulting company called VMW Strategies. VMW. Vivian Margaret Whitaker. I sat in Marin's office with my hands clasped so tight my nails left marks in my palms. Why would they need me? I asked. Grant looked at Marin before answering. Clean credit, he said. Low debt. Your design business gives the loan a plausible purpose. Event holdings. Wedding planning. Vendor deposits. Luxury expansion. Banks like stories that make sense. My business makes $90,000 in a good year. I said. On paper, with inflated projections and Whitaker collateral references, it can be made to look like more. Marin turned a page. And once you were legally married, they likely planned to pressure you into signing additional documents. If you resisted, they could claim you knew, benefited, or were unstable. Unstable. That word would come back. On day 6, Lily and Marcus took me to the townhouse Ethan and I were supposed to move into together. Marin told us not to enter without documenting everything, so Lily filmed from the moment we unlocked the door. The place looked staged for a life that had died before it started. New dishes in the kitchen. Towels folded in the bathroom. A framed engagement photo leaning against the wall because we had never agreed where to hang it. My books still in boxes. Ethan's golf clubs by the stairs. I did not go there for clothes. I went for proof. Ethan had always been careless with paper. He liked the idea of being organized more than he liked organizing. His desk upstairs had drawers full of old receipts, dead pens, cufflinks, tax forms, and protein bar wrappers. In the bottom drawer, under a stack of wedding invitation samples, I found a black folder. Inside were copies of my driver's license, my social security card, my business tax returns, and a printout of my electronic signature from a vendor agreement. There were loan projections I had never seen. There were emails between Ethan and someone named VMW with no profile picture. And there was a handwritten note on thick cream stationery. Ethan, after the wedding, do not let her delay the remaining signatures. She is sentimental and insecure, which makes her manageable if handled publicly. If she resists, document her as emotional. People believe a hysterical bride before they believe a calculating one. Make her understand she is already tied to us. Mother, I sat in the floor of that office with the note in my hand and felt something inside me go very still. Marcus cursed so loudly Lily told him to shut up because we were recording, but I just stared at Vivian's handwriting. Sentimental and insecure. Manageable. Hysterical bride. I had spent 14 months trying to earn warmth from a woman who had been studying where to cut me. Lily crouched beside me. Claire, she whispered, we have to go. I nodded. But before we left, I took the framed engagement photo from the wall. Not because I wanted it. Because behind it, taped to the cardboard backing, was a small envelope. Inside were 2 flash drives and a folded post-it in Ethan's handwriting. Reception audio backup. In case mom wants clips. That was the second twist. Vivian had recorded the wedding for social content. The same obsession with image that helped her stage my humiliation had preserved it. Grant extracted the files the next day. Some were useless: speeches, clinking glasses, a drunk cousin telling a story about college football. But one file came from a camera near the sweetheart table, placed behind. Flowers for cinematic reception sound. It caught everything. Vivian telling me to get up. Me refusing. Vivian calling Ethan over. And then, lower but clear enough, Vivian whispering to Ethan before the slap, "Break her pride tonight, or she will never sign what remains." Ethan whispered back, "Not here." Vivian said, "Especially here." Then the slap. I listened once. Only once. Marin listened twice, expression hardening. Grant leaned back in his chair. "That's not a family argument," he said. "That's April." Marin filed emergency notices with the bank before the week ended. The bank froze the line pending investigation. Vivian texted me 4 minutes after the freeze. "What have you done?" I did not answer. Then Ethan called from a blocked number. I answered only because Marin sat beside me and nodded. "Claire," he said, voice shaking. "Please don't hang up. I'm listening. Mom is losing her mind." The bank called. "What did you tell them?" "The truth." He exhaled hard. "You don't understand how serious this is." "I think I do." "No, you don't. My mother put up assets. There are commitments, people are expecting that money." "What people?" Silence. Marin wrote on a legal pad, "Keep him talking." "What people, Ethan?" "It's complicated." "Did you forge my signature?" "No, did your mother?" "You signed a lot of things." "That's not an answer." His voice sharpened. "You always need everything explained like you're being attacked." I looked at Marin. She gave me nothing, just calm. "Why did your mother write that I should be made to look hysterical?" I asked. Long silence. When Hess spoke again, he sounded smaller. "You went through my desk?" "My desk too, remember? Our home?" "That note is out of context." "How do you put 'break her pride' in context?" He started crying then. I heard it in his breath. "I love you." "No," I said. "You loved what I didn't know." He hung up. The confrontation happened 2 days later in a private conference room at Marin's office. It was supposed to be a mediated conversation about separation and property. Ethan arrived with Vivian and a lawyer named Porter Lane, who looked expensive enough to bill by the blink. Vivian wore a cream suit and dark sunglasses indoors. "Claire," she said, as if greeting me at brunch. "This has gone far enough." I said nothing. Marin did the talking. She laid copies of the loan documents on the table. Then the LLC filing. Then the bank freeze notice. Then the handwritten note. Then transcripts of the wedding audio. Porter Lane's face changed with each page. Ethan stared at the table. Vivian removed her sunglasses slowly. "This is a family matter," she said. Marin looked at her. "Identity theft is not a family matter." Porter cleared his throat. "Let's avoid inflammatory language." Grant, who had been sitting quietly near the wall, opened his laptop. "Then let's use precise language," he said. At 11:46 p.m. on the wedding night, an online request was submitted to release $850,000 from the approved commercial line. The IP address traces back to a device at Mrs. Whitaker's residence. Vivian's face did not move, but her fingers tightened around the sunglasses. "That proves nothing." Grant clicked again. "The receiving account belongs to VMW Strategies, an entity controlled by you through a registered agent in Delaware." Porter turned slightly toward Vivian. "You didn't disclose that to me." She ignored him. Ethan whispered, "Mom." Vivian snapped, "Be quiet." The room went silent. For the first time, I saw Ethan flinch from her the way I had flinched from him. It did not make me forgive him. But it explained something ugly. Marin slid one final document across the table. "A police report is being filed this afternoon unless your clients agree to preserve all records, stop all contact with my client, and consent to the bank's fraud investigation." Vivian laughed softly. "You think you can scare me with paperwork?" "No," Marin said. "I think evidence can." Grant played the audio. Vivian's own voice filled the room. "Break her pride tonight, or she will never sign what remains." Ethan closed his eyes. Porter Lane went pale. Vivian looked at me then. Really looked. Not like a girl from nowhere. Not like a stain. Like a locked door she had expected to open. "You ungrateful little nobody," she said quietly. There she was. Not polished. Not charitable. Not respectable. Just mean. I leaned forward. "I left my wedding with your son's handprint on my face," I said. And somehow you still thought the biggest mistake that night was that I didn't obey. Vivian stood. Porter grabbed her sleeve. Sit down. She jerked away from him. You have no idea what you've done. Marin gathered the documents. Yes, she said. She does. My phone buzzed then. A message from the bank investigator assigned to my case. Marin read it first, then turned the screen toward me. The emergency release attempt had been fully blocked. Additional suspicious accounts had been flagged. The bank had referred the matter to federal investigators because the loan application crossed state and electronic banking lines. Vivian read my face and understood before anyone said it. Her confidence cracked. Just a hairline fracture. But I saw it. And in that crack, I realized the wedding had not been the end of my life. It had been the beginning of their collapse. The police report was filed at 4:30 that afternoon. Marin made sure everything was clean. No threats. No revenge posts. No emotional emails. No public accusations that could give Vivian a way to paint me as reckless. Evidence first. Process second. Exposure last. That was hard for me. Rage wants a microphone, justice prefers a paper trail. For weeks, I lived inside that paper trail. The bank confirmed that my signature had been digitally copied from legitimate vendor paperwork. The LLC had been created using my business credentials and personal information. My tax returns had been altered to inflate income. Someone had uploaded documents from an email address tied to Ethan's recovery phone number. The $850,000 transfer request had been submitted from Vivian's home network. Ethan tried calling from new numbers. It blocked them. Then he sent letters. Claire, I know you hate me right now. I made the worst mistake of my life. My mother pushed everything. You know how she controls people. I was scared. Please don't destroy me. The last line enraged me most. Please don't destroy me. As if I had been the person who raised a hand. As if I had forged the documents. As if walking away from a trap was the same as setting it. Then came the third twist. Marin received a call from a woman named Allison Reed. Allison had dated Ethan 4 years before me. She had seen a local gossip post about the runaway bride incident. Before it was deleted. Someone mentioned the bank investigation of a friend. She had a story. Then another woman called. Then a third. By the time Marin asked if I was ready to hear it, 4 women had come forward. None had married Ethan. All had been charmed by him. All had been belittled by Vivian. All had been pressured to sign business opportunity documents connected to small investments, credit cards, rental guarantees, or consulting agreements. None of their cases were as large as mine, because none of them made it to the altar. Allison said Vivian once told her, "Women like you should be grateful when a serious family gives you structure." A woman named Brooke had $38,000 in credit card debt opened under a business she thought had failed because of her own mistakes. A nurse named Paige had co-signed a property deposit she never understood and spent 2 years repairing her credit. The fourth woman, Erin, cried during her statement because Ethan had convinced her she was too unstable to remember what she had agreed to. Hysterical. Emotional. Unstable. Different women. Same language. That discovery broke something in me again, but differently. I had thought I was stupid for not seeing it. Then I realized I had walked into a machine. A beautiful, polished, family-approved machine built to turn women into signatures. The first hearing was 5 weeks after the wedding. I wore a navy suit and low heels because Marin told me court was not a place to look like a victim or a fighter. It was a place to look credible. My cheek had healed, the mark was gone. But I could still feel it sometimes, especially when I walked into rooms where people stared. Ethan sat across the courtroom beside Vivian. He looked thinner. His hair was longer than usual, like nobody had reminded him to cut it. Vivian looked exactly the same. Cream blazer. Pearls. Perfect posture. Mouth pressed into a lean of insulted superiority. Porter Lane was no longer with them. That told Mesamething. Their new attorney looked nervous. The judge, a woman named Honora Bell, had the kind of quiet authority that made everyone speak more carefully. She reviewed the preliminary motions without drama. Then Marin introduced the wedding footage as part of our request for protective orders and annulment proceedings based on coercion, fraud, and violence. I had seen the video already. Watching it in court was different. The room was not a ballroom. There were no flowers, no candles, no music trying to soften the ugliness. Just a screen, fluorescent lights, and the slap. The sound filled the courtroom. My mother gasped behind me. My father reached for her hand. Marcus stared at Ethan with astleness that scared me more than anger would have. On the video, Vivian's smile was visible. Then Marin played the audio clip. Break her pride tonight, or she will never sign what remains. Judge Bell looked up. Ethan lowered his head. Vivian did not. Marin stood. Your Honor, this was not an isolated domestic dispute. It was a public act of coercion used to intimidate my client on the same day her identity was being used to secure a fraudulent $3.2 million commercial line of credit. The opposing attorney objected. Judge Bell overruled it. Marin continued. My client left before additional signatures could be obtained. Within hours, a release attempt was made. The bank blocked it only after she reported the fraud. We will show that the wedding itself was used as both social pressure and financial cover. Vivian whispered something to her lawyer. Judge Bell's eyes moved to her. Mrs. Whitaker, you will have an opportunity to speak through counsel. Vivian sat back, furious. Then the bank representative testified. He explained how the application had passed an initial review. Because Whitaker Development had an existing relationship with the bank. He confirmed that my signature appeared inconsistent under forensic review. He confirmed that my personal information had been uploaded with altered business projections. He confirmed that Vivian was connected to the receiving entity through beneficial ownership documents obtained after the freeze. The words were clinical. The damage was not. I listened to strangers discuss my life in terms like exposure, liability, identity compromise, and fraudulent instrument. It should have made me feel small. Instead, it made the whole thing real enough to fight. Grant testified next. He walked through the LLC, the shell company, the email trail, the wedding audio backup, the note from Vivian, and the previous women who had come forward. When Allison Reed entered the courtroom, Ethan looked up so fast it almost hurt to see. She did not look at him, she looked at me. Then she told the judge what had happened to her. By the time Brooke and Paige gave statements, Vivian's attorney had stopped objecting as much. Maybe Heck knew the wall was already falling. Maybe he was saving energy for a disaster he could not prevent. The disaster came when the prosecutor handling the financial investigation stood and informed the court that additional charges were under review because the pattern appeared broader than my case. Vivian finally cracked. These women are liars, she snapped. Every one of them wanted access to my son. Every one of them wanted a lifestyle she did not earn. Judge Bell's face hardened. Mrs. Whitaker. Vivian pointed at me. And that one walked out of her marriage after provoking him in front of everyone. The courtroom went dead quiet. I felt Ethan look at me. For the first time, I did not feel fear when Vivian's anger turned my way. I felt clarity. Judge Bell leaned forward. Mrs. Whitaker, if you interrupt again, you will be removed. Vivian sat, breathing hard. Ethan did not defend her. He did not defend me either. That was who he was. A man who chose silence whenever truth became expensive. The protective order was granted. The annulment case moved forward. The criminal investigation widened. The bank wiped the fraudulent obligation from my name pending final resolution and issued letters to the credit bureaus. Marin filed civil claims for damages tied to identity theft, emotional distress, and financial harm. It took months. People think revenge is a single scene. A door kicked open. A speech. A villain crying under bright lights. Real revenge is slower. It is signing forms with a steady hand. It is answering the same humiliating questions without apologizing for the answers. It is sending certified mail. It is sitting across from investigators and saying, no, I did not authorize that, until the sentence becomes a spine. The wedding video leaked after 2 months. Not from Marin. We still do not know who posted the first clip. Maybe a guest. Maybe a staff member. Maybe someone from Vivian's own circle who finally got tired of pretending cruelty was class. The clip spread fast. Not because people cared about me, at first. They cared because it was shocking. A bride in a white dress. A groom's hand. A mother-in-law smiling. A demand to kneel. The internet did what the ballroom had not done. It reacted. Women stitched the clip with their own stories. Lawyers explained financial abuse. Domestic violence advocates talked and were buried alive by women who had seen enough. Whitaker Development released a statement about a private family matter. Then the bank investigation became public record. Then the statement disappeared. Ethan lost his position at the company after it came out that client data may have been used in unrelated account applications. Vivian resigned from 3 charity boards in the same week. The hospital quietly removed her name from the Spring Gala committee. A local magazine deleted a glowing profile of her titled, Grace Under Pressure. I wish I could say I danced in my apartment when I saw that. I didn't. I sat on the floor and cried. Because humiliation does not vanish just because people finally agree you were harmed. A part of me still stood in that ballroom, waiting for somebody to cross the room. But the difference was, I no longer stood there alone. Messages came from strangers. Too many to answer. Some kind. Some invasive. Some awful, but in the middle of the noise were women who wrote things I could not ignore. My boyfriend's mother did this with my student loans. My husband made me sign a business loan after our baby was born. My in-laws call me unstable whenever I ask about money. It was just me. I thought it was just me. That sentence changed my life. The annulment was granted 7 months after the wedding. The judge found that the marriage had been entered under fraud, coercion, and concealed financial misconduct. Legally, it was unwound. Not erased from my memory, but removed from the future they had tried to trap me inside. When the order came through, I sat in Marin's office and stared at the page. Marriage annulled. My name restored. Fraudulent debt disputed and cleared. Marin handed me a tissue. You're free, she said. I laughed once, and it sounded broken. I don't know how to be free yet. You'll learn. She was right. But first came the confrontation. Not the courtroom one. Not the legal one. The human one. Ethan waited outside the courthouse after a later hearing connected to the criminal case. It was late afternoon. The sky was low and gray, and rain had left the pavement shining. I was alone because Marin had gone back inside to file something, and Marcus had stepped away to get the car. Ethan stood near the columns in a dark coat, hands in his pockets. I stopped when I saw him. The protective order allowed no contact, but he lifted both hands like that made him harmless. I'm not here to scare you, he said. I looked toward the courthouse doors. I can call security. I know. He looked terrible. Not movie terrible. Real terrible. Pale, exhausted, smaller. The kind of smaller that happens when a man who spent his life borrowing power from his mother discovers it. Cannot protect him from consequences. I just need 2 minutes, he said. No, I said, his face twisted. Claire, please. Hearing my name in his voice used to move me. That day, it only reminded me of how language can wear a mask. My lawyer can speak to yours. I'm pleading out, he said quickly. That stopped me. He swallowed. I'm accepting responsibility on the document charges they can prove. Mom is fighting everything, but I can't. There are emails. The audio. The bank logs. He laughed bitterly. Turns out she kept records of everything because she didn't trust me either. I said nothing. He took a step, then stopped himself. I know you think I planned all of it. You did plan all of it. No. Not at first. I mean, I knew there were papers. I knew Mom wanted to use your business. I thought it was just leverage. Expansion. Something we would explain later. I stared at him. Do you hear yourself? His eyes filled. She made everything sound normal. She always does. By the time I realized how deep it was, I was already in it. You were in it when you took my social security card. He flinched. You were in it when you let her call me unstable. His mouth trembled. You were in it when you hit me. A tear slipped down his face. I hate myself for that. I don't care. He looked stunned. Maybe he expected anger. Maybe forgiveness. Maybe the old Claire who would manage his emotions for him so he did not have to carry them alone. I had buried her with the veil. I loved you, he whispered. No, I said. You loved that I kept trying to understand you. That's not fair. Fair? I stepped closer then, not because I wanted to threaten him, but because I wanted him to hear every word. Without the rain taking any of them. You slapped me in front of 180 people and told May caused it. Your mother tried to bury me under $3.2 million of debt. You were going to house my name, my work, my credit, my future, and my shame. Do not ask me for fair. He agreed openly then. My mother ruined me. I looked at him for a long moment. Maybe it was true, in some way. Vivian had raised him to confuse love with obedience, money with morality, control with care. She had made him useful before she made him kind. But he was still the hand. Your mother taught you, I said. You chose. His face folded. I walked past him. He said my name once more. I did not turn around, that was my real revenge. Not the court orders. Not the headlines. Not Vivian losing her committees or Ethan losing his job. Those things mattered, but they belonged to systems bigger than me. My revenge was leaving him unanswered. Vivian's sentencing came later. She did not go to prison for as long as stringent sections imagine. She had age, expensive counsel, negotiated restitution, and enough plausible deniability to soften certain charges. But she was convicted on financial misconduct tied to the fraudulent entities. She paid heavily. She lost board seats, banking privileges, public trust, and the one thing she valued more than money, the ability to control a room without people whispering. At her final hearing, she wore black. Not mourning. Branding. She gave a statement about misunderstandings, family stress, and protecting her son from opportunistic influences. Judge Bell listened without expression. Then she said, Mrs. Whitaker, the court is not persuaded that protecting family requires stealing another person's identity. Vivian's face went red. I carried that sentence home like a gift. Ethan accepted a plea arrangement for his role. Smaller than Vivian's, but permanent, public. Searchable. He sent one final letter through his attorney. I did not open it. Marin asked if I was sure. Yes, I said. Some words are just another room they want you to walk into. She smiled. That may be the healthiest sentence you've said all year. A civil settlement came 13 months after the wedding. Not life-changing money, but enough to cover legal costs, therapy, credit repair, moving expenses, and the business time I had lost. I used part of it to rent a small studio above a bakery on Queen Street. Not outing design studio. At least, not at first. I thought weddings would make me sick forever. White dresses. Place cards. Seating charts. Mother-son dances. All of it felt contaminated. So I started with branding for women-owned small businesses. Florists, hair salons. A mobile coffee cart. A postpartum doula. A woman who made custom memorial quilts from old shirts. Work that felt human. Work where nobody asked me to make cruelty look elegant. Then, one afternoon, a young bride named Maya came in with her mother and fiance. She needed invitations. She was nervous, not about the design, but about money. Her fiance kept telling her, gently, we can make it smaller. I care about the marriage, not the room. I watched him say that and felt something unclench. The problem had never been weddings. The problem was worshipping the performance of love while ignoring whether love was safe in private. I designed Maya's invitations. Soft green. Simple type. Wildflowers. No orchids. After that, weddings came back slowly. Smaller ones. Kinder ones. Backyard ceremonies. Beach vows. Community center receptions where aunties argued about food but nobody tried to steal the bride's chair. I put a framed line on the wall of my studio, no celebration is worth your dignity. Clients asked to boot it sometimes. I told the truth when I wanted to. Not always. My story did not belong to anyone who was just curious. But when a woman lingered too long over that sentence, when her smile tightened, when she joked too quickly about a fiance who just gets mad sometimes, or a future mother-in-law who means well, I paid attention. A year after the wedding, Marin invited me to speak at a financial abuse awareness event at a community center. I almost said no. I was not a speaker. I was not an expert. I still sometimes flinched when men moved too fast beside me in grocery store aisles. I still had nightmares where I could not get out of the wedding dress because the buttons multiplied under Lily's fingers. But Marin said, you don't have to be healed to be useful. So I went. There were 60 women in folding chairs, plus a few men, advocates, lawyers, and volunteers. I wore the bracelet I had worn on my wedding day. Tiny pearls. My mother's gift. For months I kept it in a drawer because it smelled like hairspray and panic in my memory. That night, I wore it because it belonged to me before it belonged to the trauma. I stood at the front with shaking hands and told them a cleaner version of the story. Not every detail. Enough. I told them the first hit does not always start with a hand. Sometimes it starts with a joke at your expense. A document you are rushed to sign. A password you are guilted into sharing. A family system that calls obedience respect. A man who says, don't embarrass me, when what he means is, don't expose me. I told them shame is a locked room, and the person who hurt you will hand you the key only if you promise not to use it. So use it anyway, I said. Afterward, a woman with gray hair and a red cardigan came up to me crying. My daughter-in-law, she said. My son controls all the accounts. I thought it was their marriage. I didn't know it could be abuse. She covered her mouth like the realization hurt. I hugged her. And for the first time, my story felt like something other than a wound. It felt like a warning light. A few months later, Lily and I drove past Magnolia Hall. We did not plan it. We were on our way to lunch. And she took a wrong turn because she was yelling at a podcast host through the speakers. Suddenly the iron gates appeared on the right, the oak trees hanging low, the driveway curving toward the place where I had walked out in a wedding dress with my cheek on fire. Lily reached to turn the car around. Sorry, she said quickly. Wait. She looked at me. I stared through the windshield. The building looked smaller than I remembered. Still beautiful. Still expensive. Still capable of fooling people into thinking beauty and goodness are related. For a moment, I saw it all again. The cake. The orchids, Vivian and pearls. Ethan's face. The guests frozen in their chairs. My veil on the table like a shed skin. Then the memory shifted. I saw myself walking. Not crying in the hotel. Not shaking on the bathroom floor. Not reading the bank email. Walking. I had walked out before I understood the full trap. Before the lawyer. Before Grant. Before the audio. Before the women who came forward. Before the court orders, the settlement, the studio, the speech, the framed sentence on my wall. I had walked out with almost no information except the most important one, this is not love. Lily touched me arm. You okay? I nodded. Yeah. You want to egg it? I laughed so hard I startled myself. No, you sure? I have emotional range and questionable morals. I'm sure. She drove on. That night, I went home to my apartment. It was not big. It did not have old money furniture or a chandelier selected by a woman who believed taste could disguise cruelty. It had plants in mismatched pots, books stacked under the coffee table, a yellow quilt my mother-ma. And windows that caught the evening light. The silence inside was gentle. That was new. For a long time, silence had meant waiting. Measuring. Listening for footsteps, tone changes, the pause before someone decided I had said the wrong thing. Now silence meant peace. I made tea. I watered the basil plant that refused to thrive but refused toddy. I opened my laptop and saw an inquiry from a BR. I'd who wanted a small invitation suite for a courthouse wedding. Her message said, "We want something simple. Just us, our parents, and no drama." I smiled. Then I looked at the bracelet on my wrist, the one from my wedding day. For a while, I thought survival meant becoming someone completely different. Harder. Sharper. Untouchable. But the truth was stranger. I was still sentimental. Still hopeful. Still the woman who loved flowers, paper textures, good vows, and the moment a couple laughs because the photographer tells them to act natural and they absolutely cannot. Vivian had been wrong about almost everything. But she had been right that I was sentimental. She just never understood that tenderness is not weakness. Tender things can leave. Tender things can testify. Tender things can rebuild. Sometimes I think about that chair Vivian demanded as if it were a throne. I used to believe the argument was about respect. Then I thought it was about power. Now I know it was about erasure. They wanted the chair. Then the apology. Then the signature. Then the silence. Then the money. Then the story. They wanted all of it. They did not get it. I left my own wedding with my face burning. My dress dragging through spilled petals, and 180 people watching me choose humiliation over obedience. At least, that is what they thought they saw. What they actually saw was the exact moment I saved my own life. And in the end, after all their forged signatures, shell companies, threats, whispers, lawyers, and lies, there was still one thing Vivian Whitaker could never fake. My name belonged to me.